minimize the role of homework. Now, what we're going to start looking at now, because as I said earlier, we have so much to cover. So maybe we'll spend this balance of this workshop and maybe one more. That's about all the time we'll have to squeeze this subject in. If later you would like to go into the subject on a much more detailed, systematic basis, then you all know what you need to do is to corral Bilal and force him to organize it. We want to start talking about shifting the focus of your human relationships from yourself to the other. Very important. Now, do I understand each of us in this room are on the same? Do we agree that it's much more, how do I put it, intelligent to enter into these relationships on the side of contribution and uselessness? How many want to remain on the useless side? Let's see a show. And because we have to respect all opinions here, right? Because we may have to do a workshop on how to stay on the useless side. I can do that. I can work both sides of the fence. I've been on both sides of the fence. So those of you who do not wish to relinquish the useless side of the relationship, we can talk about that, because there are certain things you have to be able to do in order to maximize your uselessness. Even in being useless, you're not doing a good job. I can help you, okay? However, if you wish to focus on the level of contribution, on the side of contribution, then that will be the side I will be more willing to help you with. There has to, first of all, be a commitment in you to shift the focus in your human relationship from the self to the other. That requires some self-respect on it. So you begin to see again and again, we keep coming back to the same thing. If you don't have the self-respect, you're not going to be able to make the shift, are you? It's no way possible. So don't forget about all of the homeworks that we have aimed at establishing self-respect, because you're going to need all the self-respect you can get to make that shift. There are certain dynamics involved in making the shift in your human relationships from yourself to the other, and we want to begin to examine those things. Let me remind you that, that again, not only is the quality of the relationship going to improve, I guarantee you that. I guarantee you that. I'm willing to stake my life on it. Okay? I can tell you with no equivocations, the quality of the relationship is going to radically improve in terms of both parties, but particularly in terms of the person making the shift. I can tell you another thing, a secret that most of us don't know. You see, when you're living on the useless side of the relationship, you can almost tell, because one, of course, you're not happy. You're really not happy in the relationship. Not really. But you have a list of things that you feel will make you happy. All of those things are on the useless side. All of those things are selfish. All of those things is focused on you. And let me tell you a great secret. Happiness is the result of being on the contribution side in a relationship. So if you're really serious about being happy in your relationships, if you're serious about it, the best way to go about that is shifting to the contribution side of the relationship. Because that making of contributions is what makes you happy. Happiness is experienced as a result of giving. Please make a note of that. There is no way to bring yourself into a state of happiness by pursuing any selfish approach toward it. It has never happened in the history of mankind, and it will never happen in the future of mankind. It's not possible. You're attempting something that is fundamentally impossible. It is what we call a negative ambition. It can't be done. It can't be done. And millions have tried it. Don't take my word for it. Remember, do some research. Look in your own life and ask yourself, have you been able to do it? Have you been able to maintain or increase your own subjective and personal experience of happiness by following the path of uselessness? For most of us, the answer is no. We have not been able to do it. It requires manipulating that other person, exploiting that other person, editing that other person, trying to get that other person to change, and you can't do that. That's not possible. And unless the other person changes, unless the other person follows your list of rules and regulations and meet all your expectations, then by definition you are deprived of the experience of being happy in that relationship, because you think these are the things you need this other person to do in order for you to be happy. And it's all on the useless side of the relationship. And it never produces. It is a good intention that you have. This is completely outside the realms of good intention. So the shifting of the focus in your human relationship from the self to the other necessitates you understanding and being properly motivated by realizing that happiness is on the other side. And I stress that so much because we really don't understand that, because I've told you that in this culture we have all been conditioned, cultured, trained, educated, and led to believe that our happiness comes from the other in the sense of what we can take from them. The truth of it is our happiness comes from the other in terms of what we can give to the other. Big difference. Big difference. Shifting the focus of our human relationships from the self to the other involves us looking at the very starting point of the relationship is our list of things that we expect from the other. I hope you all have formally or informally made such a list, because that's the first thing that you need to do. You need to see this here. You need to put it on paper. You need to become very conscious of it. Very conscious of it. Remember, this shifting from the focus of the self to the other in our relationships is not an unconscious process. We got to do this consciously, deliberately, in full awareness. But first you need to be in touch with all of the things that you were previously expecting from the other person. Write it down. And then we're going to drop it. But you need to be aware of it first, because you're usually not even aware of it. Have you noticed? Make a list, if you will, of all the things that you are expecting from the persons that you are in relationship with. Look at your list of expectations. What's on your list? What would be some of the typical things we'll find on the list? If you haven't done one, think about it. Let's do it sort of like a group list, okay? Right? The average list. Your list will be very personal, and it will be very unique and intimate to your relationship. But have you ever thought about it? It begins first with the kind of person that you want them to be. One. Right? The kind of person they should be. And notice, they should be that. Right? According to you. What makes up this concept of what you expect and think the other person should be? We talked about the anima and the animus. You remember from last workshop, we talked about this concept that each of us have of our woman or our man based upon our own internalization. Okay? Did somebody do that homework and can begin to guide us through it? Sadiki, you did some of it. What did that internal woman of yours look like? In Florida, I want you to pay particularly close attention to this here. Huh?
I've read it.
You read it? All right.
Well, I looked at
Let's start with open-minded.
Open-minded. What else?
Good communicator. Strong spiritual background. Mild temperament.
Mild temperament. Okay.
Trustworthy.
You're not describing a real human being, are you? Huh? Trustworthy. Okay.
Independent.
Independent. Meaning that, of course, won't be no burden on you. Right? Right? That's what that translates. That's a good addition, right? What else?
Creative.
Creative. You did good homework. Were there any other chief quality characteristics you were looking at?
Full of laughs and good humor.
Good humor. How close did this description of this woman come to the kind of woman you would be if you were a woman? Is this the kind of woman you would be if you were suddenly transformed into a woman?
Yeah, that's the basis.
That was the whole basis of the homework, right? And that you would be open-minded and you would make sure that you had good communicative skills, etc. These are your qualities of your inner woman, right? All right. How many of us in the audience share these same qualities? We just go on and add to it. Because, I mean, really, you describe a woman we all looking for, brother. Right? But what other things can we add here to the kind of person? And please make a note. This is the kind of expectation that you take into the relationship. Right? If Florida could become the perfect wife for you, then she would be reflections of all of these things, wouldn't she? Huh? And to the extent that she is not a reflection of all these things, to that extent you feel you have to work and do all these other things. We'll come back to that before we exhaust all of it. Who else have something like this that they did? The kind of person that you're looking for in the other person.
I did one.
You did one?
Very similar to his.
Very similar? I shouldn't have raced. All right, shall we begin again?
Yes.
This is a man this time.
Right. This
All
is
right.
my inner man.
Inner man.
Obvious.
Obvious inner man, folks. Pay attention.
The first quality I had was honesty. And I had trustworthy, dependable, faithful.
Is he black? I don't know about this you know.
Faithful, okay. Loving, extroverted, and I like to have a sense of humor.
Extrovert.
Meaning,
Social.
yeah. Right. And that's what I have for my description.
And what was the last one?
The sense of humor.
Now this is interesting. So it seems that a woman are looking for the same thing men are looking for. And we're beginning to get an idea when it comes to qualities in another human being. Who else did the homework?
I did it.
Do it, Rob.
Thought about it.
Thought about it. Let's make room for Rob.
You know, really, instead of coming out with all those little categories right there, I kind of said that the inner person, or the inner woman that's in me, which is really me, how I would like for her to be, which is how I should be myself. And she should base all her actions off just truth, and then everything from there will fall in place.
All right. And truth and all of the derivatives there.
Right. That's the conclusion that I came to.
all the other ones are contained and seed form in this truth.
Right. I feel like that should be the foundation. You know, that you both should be aiming at, instead of trying to deal with one another. You aim at this truth thing, and then both of you will get some nourishment out of that.
So if you were a woman, you will base your relationship with a man on truth.
Right.
Living in the truth.
I think both should have the same expectations. Neither one, you know, they shouldn't be different.
Anybody else?
I basically said what everybody else said, except Pam said earlier, share. Like share knowledge and stuff like that. So that was just an added thing.
Okay. All of the above.
Plus share.
Sharing, that's interesting.
And like, mainly like being like a teacher. I think your mate should be like, you know, point out your weaknesses and faults. I mean, not criticizing you, but you know, if you walk out the house with a green shirt on and orange pants, they may tell you, you don't look right with that. In the same way, if they can detect certain character flaws with you, it makes you a better person.
So you want to call that teacher?
Teaching.
You all understand what it means by the word teacher. And those again will be the qualities that if you were a woman, you would try to aim to achieve. Anyone else? Yes, Pam?
Okay. Powerful.
All right. All right, powerful.
Intelligent.
What way?
Okay.
Powerful.
I guess the ability to influence people.
Okay.
That doesn't have to be a negative.
That's right.
Can influence
It
people
could be
positively.
positive, right.
Yeah. Intelligent. Spiritual. Courageous or fearless. Sensitive. And charismatic.
Okay. Those are very good. Again, quality that you're looking for in a man by definition, because these are the kind of qualities that you would try to demonstrate if you were a man yourself. The idea that I wanted you to begin to see is that each of us bring to a relationship a completely formed inter-concept of a woman or of a man. They very often may be a description of a person that don't even exist on the planet. You see, at all. And as long as that expectation is driving the relationship, you see, there's going to be some experience of disappointment, because the human being may not be powerful that you got. You see, they may not be intelligent, right? They may not be all of these above, but you're in a relationship with it, and then to that extent, that relationship becomes dissatisfying, or it causes you to try to edit that person and transform them to meet these ideals that you're carrying. So these become the whole set of expectations that we bring into that useless side, don't we? To begin with, by having a fixed ideal, even if it's not conscious, but fixed nevertheless, of the kind of person the other should be. And then our whole effort is to edit and manipulate and change that person into the kind of person that matches up with our own internalized animal animus. And very often that is impossible and leads to a lot and lots of conflict in a relationship. In addition to the list of things that we bring into the relationship in terms of expectation, now, from this kind of person that they should be, what would be the things you're expecting from the other person? When you think about it and answer it as close to truth as possible, when you're in a relationship, what were you looking for from the other person? Really? What is your list? What were you looking for? Those of you who are still looking, you all should definitely have this down to a science, right? What are you looking for?
I would say support.
You looking for a person to support you?
Mentally and physically.
All right. You looking for support? support mentally and physically. And why support mentally and physically? Because mentally and physically we are having feelings of inadequacy. Alone, we're not mentally or physically strong enough. Right? We need someone to do that. Right? What else? Bajir?
I said forgiving.
Forgiving. Right? Forgiving. What else? We're looking for a person that will forgive us, that will overlook our shortcomings, our faults and imperfections. Right? A person that won't hold us tightly. What does forgiving mean? It will mean different things to different people. What does it mean for you, Bajikar? Because this is what you would be expecting from the person you enter into a long-term relationship. What does forgiving mean to you?
Well, I would say, is that person really, able to look over certain things and
put up with you. Right? That's what you mean, right? Okay, so you don't do minimum work to change, right? Okay, we understand it now. She means what most of us mean, right? Somebody to put up with us, all right? What else?
And I have compassionate.
Compassion. What do you mean by compassion?
Well as I go through pain, they should be able, I think sometimes you can go through, understand what I'm going through. I guess that's what I mean by compassionate to a certain extent, and able to comfort me when I'm in that pain.
You don't mean feel sorry for you. Someone to feel sorry for you
Maybe.
Because that's what most of us mean. We want somebody that feels sorry for us when we're feeling sorry for them. Join in our syndrome, our sorry syndrome, right? Someone that don't disturb the luxury and the enjoyment we get for feeling sorry for myself. Woe with me. When I start belly aching about all that is wrong in the world and how I've been abused, I want somebody to say, yeah, baby, you right, they ain't no good, so and so. That's what we normally mean by compassion. Is that what?
Yeah, that's
Feel sorry. Feel sorry for you, with you, right? All right. What else?
Patience.
Patience. What do we mean by patience? What do you mean by patience? You expect you're looking for in the other person in your life to be someone that has this patience. What do you mean? What does patience mean?
Well, I guess to be more patient, to put up with me. I guess.
Put up with you. Sort of like
those, right?
Yeah,
to be
put
more
up with
patient,
you, right?
And yeah, basically it.
Okay. Patience to do things your way.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
To move on your time, to act according to your level of urgency. What do you mean by patience?
I mean if I'm speaking on a particular subject, or I'm supposed to perform a particular task, then have patience with me until I perform it or come to my point when I'm speaking on a particular
We call that living on your terms.
Oh, is that what it is?
That's what you call that.
Okay.
Yeah, you want someone to live on your terms.
Okay.
It's okay. These are the things you expected. Just call them the right things. Don't tell a person, I want you to be patient. Say, look, I want you to live on my terms. Then the person knows. But if you say patience, they got a different definition.
Okay.
And they looking at their clock, say, my God, it's been an hour. Right?
Okay.
You talking about terms. They talking about time. Confused. Right? Okay. What else? I mean, let's put it in here because remember, each and every one of us in this room who has been in a relationship or who are currently in a relationship has bought into this relationship a whole preconceived set of expectations that we are trying our best to manipulate that other individual to fulfill. feel.
Oh, understanding.
Understanding. All right, here they come. What do we mean by understanding, Linda, right?
Understanding my point of view.
All right. You mean by understanding somebody that agrees with you.
Right.
Right, that's what we mean by when we say understanding, we mean somebody that's going to agree with us, right?
And more helpful.
Helpful, all right. What do we mean by helpful?
Around the house,
Around
with
the
the
house.
kids.
With the kids.
I mean, helpful meaning mentally and physically.
Mentally and physically. Does
Okay.
that mean do what I tell them to do?
Do what I tell them to do according to the way I ask them to do
All
it.
right. All right. So helpful means somebody you can control. Basically.
At certain points in time, yeah.
Well, of course, we're honest. That's what we're looking for. When we say I want somebody to help me, we really mean I want somebody going to do what I tell them, when I tell them, on my, just like you said, on my terms, and I can control with minimum resistance. You see? All right. Controllable. Person should be controllable. According to your term. But she's right. This is what we're looking for. What else are some of the other things that most of us bring in the form of expectations into our relationships? We have
That's critical. Someone
you
that's
seem
less
to know a lot
critical.
about this. All right. Someone that's less critical?
This was just some of my
That's okay.
characteristics.
Non-critical. What do you mean, Linda Ron, by non-critical?
Okay, such as if you make a mistake, speaking or dressing or performing a task. Instead of being so critical, they can actually just kind of, I guess it has a lot to do with the tone that they use, or at that particular time, not even give an opinion until,
Not even give it a fit.
you know, a later date or time.
Sure. That's sort of kind of non-judgmental type of
Okay.
person that's not just judging you. Sometimes a person that is not petty, making all
Yeah.
these petty judgments.
Right.
You don't
Right.
want
Not
nobody
petty.
that's petty.
Okay.
Yeah. Non-critical, understanding, loving me. Don't be petty with me. All right?
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. Again, let's examine consciously the set of expectations we have brought into our relationship. Doesn't that make sense? Because you coming into a relationship and you got all these expectations, right? And your whole experience of whether or not you're going to be happy or not is dependent upon that other person's capacity and ability and willingness to fulfill these expectations. Remember, you're on the useless side of the relationship. Let us not forget that, because these are the things you need from the other person, right? Now you're willing to give up some things. Usually none of the things you asked him for, right? Okay, but you're willing to consider. You're open for a bargain. So what are some of the other expectations that we each have carried? Try to recall. For some of us, it's been so many years ago. But try to recall and see if we are still working on those same set of expectations we had of the other person that we had 25, 30 years ago. Right? Yes, ma'am?
Anticipate needs.
To sort of anticipate your needs, right? What does that mean, to anticipate your needs?
I guess sometimes females expect men to read their minds.
That's right. You want somebody to read your mind, right?
Yeah, why not?
One of the great tragedies that has resulted in women, particularly in Western culture, but women as a rule across the world, where they have been victims of the patriarchal systems, is that they've been socially slotted into a role of servitude to the extent that they actually feel guilty about doing anything for themselves. They almost feel that they're not entitled to even ask for anything. Hence, she got 12 bags of groceries, right? She's gonna try to carry them all. She's not gonna ask her husband, get this stuff. She figured, you should get it. I shouldn't have to ask you. But if I ask you, somehow she's in violation of something. She has very great difficulty in asking for what she wants. Hence, the seldom experience of getting what she wants. Because the reality is what? Can't nobody read your mind. Very often, one of the interesting things, Joyce, my wife, still do it today. If I go to the refrigerator and get some soda or water or whatever, and come all the way back upstairs and sit down, she said, "Why didn't you bring me no pop?" Now, you see, you all can identify with that, right? You understand exactly where Joy's coming from, because in her mind, she's saying, you should have known that I was thirsty, right? You thirsty, you should know I'm thirsty. We both been laying here the same amount of time, right? And you go all the way downstairs and you don't bring me anything up, and she's angry about that, right? Because now she feels mistreated. And if the men have had the experience, if you go back downstairs, get the glass of water, come all the way back up, she said, "I don't want it now." You didn't get it the first time and I don't want it. And I'm thinking, have you ceased being thirsty that quick? This is amazing. How you do that? You know? But the point is that women have a lot of expectations and don't even articulate them. A lot of them, they don't even permit to rise into consciousness. And when women have forming this list, they attempt to get all of this support and all these other things without opening their mouth at all. Never once asking the man for it. You see? So you're right, Pam. Very often, women are looking for, as a quality in their mate, it's a fortune teller ability to read minds. I don't know if such a man exists, but good luck. Huh? What are some of the other expectations? And remember, to the extent that your expectations are removed from reality, to that extent you will be miserable. To the extent that your list of expectations that you bring into a relationship is removed from reality, to that same extent you will be miserable. Please make a note of that. What are some of the other expectations? Men, what are some of the expectations we bring into the relationship?
A man who's generous.
Generous.
Ambitious.
All right, Dorothy. I was waiting for you to do it. Dorothy on the board, right? What do we mean by generous? And what do we mean by ambition? First, Pam, give me your definition. Generous.
I mean, if a man says that he loves you, I mean, I guess, not that you got your hand out, gimme, gimme, gimme all the time, but at some point that should translate to something. I mean, I mean, a gift. I mean, if you love someone and you say, "Oh, that would look so good on you," why don't you buy it?
Okay, all right.
You
So he should be generous, so he should get you stuff.
Oh, Bhagwan, you have a way to say it.
So he should get you some stuff, right? From time to time, right? What Dorothy, do we mean by ambition? That your man should have some ambition.
That's willing to go out and make his own instead of complaining about what the white man did.
All right.
I mean, even though it's true, I mean, that's not going to help you get the job or get that education.
All right. So you want something like a Superman, someone that leaps tall buildings in a single bound, who can deny reality, and who cares about the fact that you only got one leg? You should still be able to, right? So you want a man that can transcend any obstacles.
No, but I want him to be as ambitious as I am.
You want to be ambitious enough?
Yes.
To get you some stuff. Is that right?
Or get it for himself.
Oh, for
but
himself.
you know, if it's
well, that's the same thing. If he get a big house for himself, it's just coincidental that you also will live in it. Is that right?
Baby,
Might be a good intention buried in there, folks, somewhere. But that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. Some man that is ambitious, somebody that can deliver.
Yeah.
That's right. Again, you have to understand a lot of these needs that you see, expectation that we have some kind of root in biology and in sociological functions of the sexes. If in antiquity, and even to some extent today, a woman's primary function within the context of a family is to nurture those children. She can't be worried about no light bill, bro. She can't be worried about is the rent going to be paid or not be paid. Cause she's got to take care of these babies. That requires a tremendous amount of security. Remember at the top of one of the workshops, I pointed out to you that one of the greatest emotional experience that a woman has to have is the experience of security. Because she's got to do this thing called mothering. And she don't want to live in this anxiety. Is my baby going to eat? Not going to eat? This is crazy. This is madness. She need to know, is you going to get some milk, man? Is you got enough money to get the baby some milk? Don't be giving me none of this macho lecture on the economy. We need the milk. Deliver the milk. My baby needs milk. She's rooted emotionally different. So it's not unrealistic to expect her to bring those expectations that is just reflected in her gender and her social conditioning and the role that society has assigned, or in fact that nature itself has assigned. So again, the list can be made much more exhaustive, but I think we are getting the point here, is that we begin to bring into the relationship all these different kinds of expectations. You need to make your own personal independent list. You need to know what's on your list. You really need to do that homework. This is not a homework to do in your mind. You do this, you write this now. Because you need to know what's on your list of expectations. And then now as you prepare yourself to shift from self to the other in your human relationship, you're going to need to tear that list up. Oh, L, you got one?
So, no, well, so are you saying if they don't find a man with those characteristics, that they won't be happy?
They won't be happy. In fact, they will seek and strive to transform that man into the kind of person that can deliver on their expectations. It will continuously bring pressure to bear to transform. That's the pressure you feel in the relationship. That's the nagging that you feel in the relationship. All of that is arising subconsciously from that other party's effort to make you an image of their own animus, along with the capacity to fulfill their expectations. They're on the useless side. They're in the relationship with what they can get out of it. You got a comment in?
I was just going to say that a lot of times I base qualities that I want in a man from my experiences in my family. And it comes out of that, you know, my relationship with my father and my relationship with my brothers.
All right.
And a lot of my qualities come out of that. And because everybody grows up differently, then my expectations are not met sometimes because, like you said, words that mean one thing to me may mean something else to that other person. And if you don't have that communication just right, you'll be guessing at what they mean, or you'll find out they didn't really mean it the way you thought they did, that kind of thing. But a lot of my stuff, and it really still is rooted in how I was raised.
All right, that's a very good point, Ms. Introduce. She's saying that all of these things that we put up here on the board that we just talked about did not pop out of thin air. That these expectations and the attitudes that go with them was formed, and they were formed within the context of our family of origin. So she's adding into this the psychohistorical origin of your expectations, which is very true. Following her in that point, let's see if we can trace back where some of your expectations originated within the context of your family system. And your family, look and see from your father, mother, you see, and to begin to look and see what they contributed to the formation of your expectations from the other gender. If your father was strong and punctual, Avia shared with us on one occasion that her father was so punctual and dependable, and she delighted in remembering that she could get up at that window just when the little cartoon was going off and their dad would be, the whole world was fine. And so she expected the same thing from men in her adult life. And she said, Bhagwan, I'm still looking, right? Where are those men that can show up when the cartoon go off? I suggested the obvious that there may not be any more, you see, right? But it is an expectation you have that the man in your life should be dependent and predictable, right? Like a man she can predict. Now, if you, by some quirk in nature or destiny, end up with a man that is totally unpredictable, this man just gonna drive you crazy. Because you don't know when he's coming home. And even when he tell you I'll be there at 6, you know that might be 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock. You don't know when he's gonna come. Huh? It becomes very frustrating. Remember, frustration is anger, right? Coupled with the sense of powerlessness. Powerlessness in the form of that you can't control when this man or when this woman come and go, and that makes you angry and it frustrates you. It's scary, really. So you're right, we begin to form this list of expectations that we have of other people in our childhood, and more particularly by the age of 8. Interesting. You've been thinking the stuff on your list is adult, the result of your long, rigorous education. No. It's kid stuff. It's kid stuff. And very often these expectations are rooted in mistaken interpretations that you form as a child. And when you take these mistaken interpretations and conclusions that you've reached about others in your childhood, and you carry those with you into your adult task of forming families and relationships, you're in trouble because your premise is false. It can be logical, you see. I mean, we can have such a thing as a premise, right? Like it's absurd as all pigs can fly, right? And if Molly is a pig, therefore Molly can fly. It's perfectly valid. More important, valid. One of Aristotle's 19 rules of logic. This is a valid statement, logically speaking. But it's false in the world of reality. Similarly, we can reach a lot of mistaken conclusions that we come to in our childhood that sounds like it makes sense. That comes out in the form of our shoulds. Whenever you say should anything, very often you need to examine it, because that should may be based on a logical, valid, but false reasoning process. You should be this. All right? Makes sense to you. Husband, you got a PhD, you're intelligent, you should be making $350,000 a year. Well, you okay, maybe it makes sense to you, you see, statistically speaking. But the reality of husband may be, you know, subject to all kinds of other realities that makes him capable of making $300,000 impossible. Or the wife, similarly, may be held to performances that to her husband seems absolutely logical. Well, I don't understand, you don't work, right? You should be able to say, if I give you $50 a week, at the end of the year, you should have at least $10,000 if you invested it right. I mean, it's crazy stuff that goes on in our minds. So you're right, Emma, a lot of these expectations that we have formed and carry over into our task of forming relationships in our adulthood are rooted in our childhood and are mere reflections of the men in our life. So if your father has certain qualities, you tend to expect those qualities in your men. If your brothers had certain qualities, you tend to start expecting that, to start expecting that, to start expecting that. Fathers took care of you. Father brought in the food, they loved you, they were unconditional, and so forth and so on, and you start expecting this kind of thing, right? But in fact, are you expecting? You're expecting the other person to be in a relationship with you on the level of contribution. That's what you deep down inside are expecting, right? So you're expecting the other person to contribute to your useless side. Because that's usually what happens in the family. It's useless. Children are on the useless side very often in the family. Because parents don't expect them from them. Right? I mean, so they just give, just give. Simply because you are mine. Case closed. Done. You see? And the child very often start thinking that everybody should be making this kind of contribution to me. Certainly the man or woman I love. Right? And when that doesn't happen, then all hell breaks loose. Right? So we have to begin to look at our list of expectations. We have to form that list. If you like to do some real thorough homework, trace them to their psychohistorical origin within the context of your family system. For those of you who have not been participants in the workshops all along, I suggest that you sit with one of the other participants. They can show you how to go about retrieving the kind of information you'll need to do this kind of tracing. They are very familiar with it. or should be familiar with it. Let me put a qualifier on that. If you don't get any satisfaction from them, you let me know, okay? In any case, once you have made this list of expectations, all right, I'm not going to tell you to give it to the other person in your relationship. That's pointless. That simply keeps you on the level of uselessness, okay? Because now you just say, well, here, honey, here's the list of all my expectations that I need you to feel, give me, so that I can have this feeling called happiness. Called I'm useless. You see, this is why I got married to you, or this is why I'm dating you, to get all this stuff from you, right? You didn't make a list of what you are going to contribute to the others. Interesting. So I want you to do that. I want you to make a list of contributions. It's just the reverse. Just the reverse. Tear up your list of expectations. I want you to know them. Yes, sister?
But what I expected a man is generally what I am, though. I mean, when I come to a relationship, I come honest.
Is it truly what you are, or is it ego mythology? I'm giving you the truth. Okay, who should we ask folks to find out if that is really the truth? Right. See, so you can't trick Dorothy with that out there. We'll go ask that boyfriend of yours, and we'll get the truth, okay? So don't confuse your ego mythology in the exercise, okay? Don't think that you're entitled to ask these things and demand these things from another person, because I'm that. No. Usually it's your ego mythology. Usually you deceive. Usually you fall. Because if it was the fact, you would never have to ask the person for it. Please make a note. If you were that way with the other person, you probably wouldn't have to ask them for any of these things. They will probably give it.
No, I don't. Well, I don't ask them, but
I mean, you wouldn't even have to expect it. You would drop it. You would have no need.
That's what happened. So you don't have a boyfriend to ask.
That's what That's what happened, right? So you don't have no boyfriend no more. Okay. So, once you complete it, but you got to do both now. I don't want you to cheat. Folks, remember, you're not doing this homework for me. Okay? This is not something you're doing to please Bhagwan. I'm meaningless. I'm not the issue here. The issue is you. You make two lists. You make one list of all your expectations. Get very familiar with it. Be thorough. If you need to spend 4 or 5 hours, then spend the time. You got time for all other kinds of nonsense. Can't you find 3 or 4 hours for yourself? And especially upon something as important as whether you're going to be happy or not happy, this is big stuff here. Unless you don't care about being happy in your relationship, and if that's the case, then you're mad. Why get married? Why enter this relationship if you don't want to be happy? It's nonsense, right? So I want you to make that list of expectations. I want you to look at it thoroughly. I want you to be honest about it. I want you to track and trace down the psychohistorical origin of these expectations as they relate to the way you were parented, etc. It's work? Yes, it's work. I didn't say that there wouldn't be no work. And destroy it afterwards. This is unimportant to us for purposes of shifting. You just need to know it. Then I want you to write a list of contribution. I want you to make a list of all those things that you can contribute, that you got that you can contribute to the other person that you're in a relationship with. I want you to focus on what you can give, what you want to give. You understand? Give. The emphasis is on give, not what you want in return as a result of giving. Then you're still on the useless side, aren't you? I'm talking about contributions, things that you want to give, share, whatever word you wish to use, with this other person that you're in relationship with no expectation whatsoever for retribution or anything in return. You don't want nothing in return at all. Get into that space. And don't put it on the list if you can't be true to the fact that you don't want nothing in return. So don't play games with yourself. If you can give them money and don't expect no repayment, good, then put it on your list. But if you just want to put it there to fulfill your ego mythology that you're generous and deceive yourself, it's going to come out in the wash, because the moment you give them that money, about 5 or 6 minutes later, you're going to start anxiety inside. When are you going to pay my money back? You understand? Right? So don't put it there. You're jabbing yourself, right? Only put that on the list that you can really give with no desire, need, or expectation to receive anything from this person whatsoever. And I want you to do that with the person that you're in a relationship with. Now, I don't want you to work on some hypothetical, theoretical relationship 10 years from now, right? We're working in the now, right now. For those of you who are maybe not in a relationship at this point, prepare yourself so that the next time you approached or hit on or you enter into your next relationship, I want you to be ready. So take advantage of this interlude, this downtime, and prepare for uptime, okay? So that's what you do with downtime, is that correct? See it as downtime. Refine yourself. You understand? Get ready. For when the next gentleman or lady comes in your life, you're ready now. You're straight. You won't even be in this useless part to begin with. And you're going to get a much better result. Yes, sir, DP?
Yes, Bhagwan. But I also found I had put so much demands and expectations. I had even went so far as physical features.
Yes. How did she look? All right, brother. All right. All right. Yes. Even there's a form that these expectations take. They look a certain way. They're in a certain type of person. They look a certain way. What would that woman who embodies all of these qualities look like? I should put you on the spot. Right? But you know the answer to that. But you'll find very often, and it's interesting to look at the person you marry. You see? Or look at the person you're in a relationship with. You want them to look a certain way. You see? You want them to look a certain way. And sometimes you can resist, right? That part of the editing process. Baby, won't you change your hair? Don't fit your hair. Don't wear that. You don't look right. I mean, what you're trying to do, you're trying to bring them into alignment with your own internalized concept of how the woman packaged with all your qualities should look. The woman that got off my power team that I wanted to have should be very sophisticated. You understand? She shouldn't be walking around here without makeup. You know what I mean? She should be. I mean, you have that all kind of thing. Or the man, this guy that has my quality, we wouldn't be walking around in no polo cap and shirt hanging all out his pants. This man would be Gucci down, Pierre Cardin down, Yves Saint Laurent down, you know, money suits, $2,000 suits on. He will be immaculate, his nails are manicured and polished. I mean, the women themselves have also created a kind of phenotype, a kind of body type that it houses those expectations that they have of their men. Isn't that correct? And very often, you enter the relationship at that physical level, don't we, Siddiqui? If you notice very closely, when we meet a person that looks like that form that we have carried in our mind, we don't know whether they got the qualities or not, but it looks like it. Because, you see, they got that kind of body and phenotype that I was looking at. And yes, the guy is Gucci down, yes. Looks good, all of it. And you fall in love and you've gone in that relationship and you might even marry the guy and find out he ain't got none of this stuff, right? You see? Or you find that woman who looks that Venus, you understand? She's got, not only is she brilliant, she's beautiful. Mouth watering, right? All the right shapes and curves. And then you marry and the girl is an airhead, you understand? And now you stuck, you disappointed, you angry. Not at yourself, you angry at her for failing to live up to your expectations. It's really strange how these things happen. But Siddiqui is, again, going deep. You did go deep into this, brother, just as you said. You went all the way down and even found the phenotype, the body type, what the person even should look like. And then we tend to respond to other people on that level. The response is first at that physical level. They look like that animal or animals. Let me get to know them. You see? And here's the process begins. Is there anything wrong with that? No. I'm just saying be clear. Yes, Nigeria.
I notice when you do meet people, you set certain standards, but you tend to let some of them go if they can't even. You tend to drop them too.
Yeah. Depends on how long it's been since you've been in a relationship, huh? Right? Depends on a lot of things, right? Sometimes you do drop them. Sometimes you drop them and you adapt. And that's good. But the point I'm making is that You be as exhausted as you can. And if you can be as exhausted as Siddiqui has been, then that's great. You get great insight. But once you form your list of expectations and trace them to their historical origin within the context of your family, look at a lot of the mistaken conclusions that you have reached that informs and underpin those expectations. See the foolishness of them. See the inappropriateness for them. See their distance from reality. Throw the list away. You off the useless side. The key is that you must consciously decide to move to the side of contribution. You must consciously decide, now I'm going to become a contributor. And just as Rob pointed out, sometimes it is just that key word, that key thing that contains all the other behavior. When you start thinking of yourself as a contributor, as a giver, as the Hindus call a bhakta, a lover, right? One who lets the abundance flow from them. That's a bhakta. That's a lover. Not this Shakespearean concept of a lover who can write beautiful poetry. That's not what the mystics are talking about when they say become a lover. That's not what Mu'min Steve or Al-Halaj Mansour is talking about. They're talking about people who just have an abundance of this stuff and it flows out. You see the difference in that? So if you have accepted the new identity that you wish to shift to in terms of your relationship, well, you're going to become a lover in this relationship rather than a choker, rather than a person who is trying to just choke happiness out of the other person. You don't care if they die, you're going to choke all the pleasure you can out of their body before it goes down, and then go down, right? Then you need to make a list of the contributions. You need to also have an ideal of your dharma. You see how even here you have to come into dharma. Those of you who have come to satsang, you know we will be talking about these 7 tasks that confront a person who wishes to live an authentically spiritual life. And we talked about the fact that one of the tasks that they have to be able to successfully meet is the ability to step into dharma. Dharma meaning, of course, to find your gift, your talent, that unique thing that you've been endowed with, right? So this becomes a list of your dharma. The list start reflecting those qualities, the cream of the crop, the best stuff in you. Because don't be so cheap. Why you want to give them, the little stuff, and you give them big stuff? Give them top shelf stuff. You understand? If a guest came to your home, right, you won't give them the pop that has been left over for 2 years. You understand? Give them fresh stuff. You're a host. These people are a guest in your life. Do you understand me? Sometimes I wonder if you really understand me. These people are a guest in your life. Be a good host. Be decent. Give your best. Bring out your best silverware. Put the linen cloth out. Understand? Be a real bhakta, and not this imitation. And this list of your contributions will be a reflection of your dharma. So it'll help you in the end, spiritually. And make that list. Get very familiar with that list. Okay? Go deep into yourself. Find this stuff. The homework has to be real, though. Remember, I don't want you inventing. I don't want no ego mythology over here. Okay? For all of you who do not understand what I mean by ego mythology, then see one of these Bhagwanian therapists. They will tell you. Okay? All right? And but we don't want no ego mythology over on this side. At all. We want it pure. Make your list. And now start practicing that in your relationships. Shift. And then become that in your relationship. I guarantee you, for the first time for many of us in our life, you will know what it tastes like to be happy. For the first time, suddenly, your life will be full of a lot more meaning. For the first time, you'll have a sense of fulfillment. You understand? Then wipe away and replace all this other frustration. Because on the useless side, I know you're frustrated. I can see it in your faces. You need not speak it. I've told you 60% of your communication is in your body. I can see it. You're frustrated because you've been useless. And the more deeper you go into your uselessness, the more frustrated you'll become. That's the equation. So move to this side, okay? And move into your Dharma, and move into a level of contribution, and see for yourself the transformation. You need not take my word. Don't take my word, in fact. I don't want you to take my word. I want you to take your experience and see with your own eyes if, in fact, what these mystics have been telling us is true. My experience, I can only testify based on my experience. My experience is that show you right. Buddha. Show you were right. Absolutely. Flawlessly. God, how could I not? You feel foolish. For all these years you've been suffering in this useless spiral of meaninglessness when you could have been living from the level of contribution that would have been happy right now. Look how many years you wasted just being full of frustration and disappointment. How can you be disappointed if you don't first have expectation? Is that possible? Do anybody know of any experience that has resulted in your disappointment that was not preceded by a set of expectation? Can you find one? Go search. Look. You will never find it. All disappointment has resulted in the failure of somebody or some event to live up to your expectations. You can't have disappointment where there are no expectations that you were looking for from that person or that situation. If you were in a useless relationship to that person, event, or thing, you can't be disappointed. It's not possible. And the absence of this disappointment will be the foundation of the experience of happiness. Just think if you're able to live without disappointment. Isn't that amazing? I'm not saying that your outer karma will change. You'll still be poor, of course. You'll get sick, yes, of course. You have karma. You have consequences that you have to go through. That's not going to change. But you'll never experience disappointment. That's amazing. To get to just the psychological and emotional state. I'm not even talking about any authentic spiritual growth yet. We're not talking about trips on the inside through the regions of consciousness and all that stuff that you read about in books. I'm talking about right here on earth, in this very body. You can eliminate the experience of disappointment, emotional, psychological. And when you knock out disappointment, what do we do to the guilt we feel? It's gone. What about the depression? Lift, disappears. Either you're disappointed in the person or you're disappointed in yourself for marrying such a thought. But somehow, shape, form, or fashion, you're disappointed. So please do the homework, okay? That's the only thing that I could repeatedly beg of you, is to do your homework. You really must do your homework. Because I know that if I fail to get you to do homework, then I failed you. I've been of no use to you. I've just wasted your time. You must do your homework. And these are very important homework if you are really, really serious. And again, I want to emphasize, only if you're serious. Now, this is not a homework for those if you just want intellectual information. Okay, you don't have to do it. Fine. You got a little information, you got some knowledge, you can speak intelligently when you're drinking tea and coffee. I mean, you can use this stuff. It's very impressive. It'll take and enhance your ego mythology immensely. Because you will sound like you know how to be in a relationship with somebody else. You really sound like that. But it won't change your mental structure and your experience of frustration and agony and anguishness. So the homework is for those who don't care about, how the coffee table aspect of the subject, that wants the real deal. This is for people who are tired of being miserable in their relationship. You just done had enough. You see, you're tired of it now. You see, you're tired of it. And you want some real stuff. This teaching is for them. So, any questions about anything? We have just a few minutes. Yes, brother. About the homework. Any question about the homework? Let me preface that, how we go about doing it. And then any other questions that you may have. Any questions about how to do the homework? What's expected? What I'm asking you to do. How many will do the homework? I'm just getting desperate in here. Let me see your hands. Bhakti Ra, put your hand up. Do the homework. All right, I drafted you. Baba, you make sure she do the homework for me, please. All right. Okay. Now, Rob, you have it.
Yeah, the word spiritual and love is thrown around quite a bit in here. I noticed this lady always say she's looking for a spiritual guy. Yeah, and I mean these words you use them in a context which have a lot of power to them. Me personally, I don't think too many of us really know what love is, because I mean, according to the masters, they say love is given with no expectation in return, right? I don't think too many of us really go about love in that way. Now, the spiritual thing, the word spirituality, I don't know why I see, when you say spirituality, I see truth. I guess you got to manifest, you know, that truth into action. Yeah. In other words, I guess that's the way you can become spiritual, by, you know, displaying your actions toward different things, right? You know, so I just wanted to ask this lady, what is your concept of spiritual? Because I noticed you always say you want your man to be spiritual.
Okay, we're going to leave that off camera, because we may have a match here. If there's no other question, I want Rob and Pam to go ahead and get into the discussion. And we will meet again next Saturday, and we'll continue. So enough for today.
Okay, Pam, I'll be voting.